Hey,
Hi.
how's it going? How was your lunch? How's your falafel sandwich?
It was delicious.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I was so flipping hungry. Know that the mic's here.
Yeah, or I can just hold it too.
If you want.
I'm not that special.
If you want to hold it, you can hold it. But what I've found is usually guests
Yeah.
move around a lot.
Yeah, I do.
And they're not cognizant of what they're doing with their hands.
Mhm.
And so that's why I give the guest the stand, because I know that I shouldn't move this around because it makes noise.
It's true.
In the recording, you hear it, right? When people move the mics.
And which is really funny because when I would hear that, I would think it was actually the guest. But I realize now that it's you because you're the only one holding the mic.
Well, I mean, no, when I do it, it is usually the guest.
Okay.
Because this is the first time that I brought the stand because I know
okay.
I don't usually when I do interviews it's either with the mic on the cam or before I had this but I did the single one, right? And that's not good.
No.
So now that I have the two mics and stuff, like
It works out better.
it's better to bring a stand so the thing doesn't move.
Yeah, because that was the problem before. Because when you would use just this, you don't know who's like really hogging up like a portion of the mic. So sometimes like you'd be loud, the other person wouldn't be loud. So it'd be confusing sometimes. And it's only one file, but like this, it's two files. So if this person is like it's too quiet, then I can always just raise up the volume on their end.
That's actually a really good tip for folks who are listening. We kind of just started this because like we are testing the sound, and when we test the sound, usually that already enters the conversation, and that's how it happened. So what we're talking about is we're using the Zoom H2 recorder, and the Zoom comes with a mic, but Jose found it difficult to edit with a single mic because when two people are talking, they're talking a different sound. Their sounds aren't exactly matched. So in the recording, it's hard to get them matched because they didn't start matched. Now, when you record with two different mics, like Jose, when he's editing, he could bring one person's level up to match the other one, or reduce the other person's level to match the person who is softer or not as loud. And so that's what Jose was saying. Something that we've learned is that we just need two mics. People need to have their own mics.
Yeah.
Unless I have started using the camera with what is that mic called?
The Rode?
The Rode. So in that case, what would happen? Like if we were doing this on the big camera with the Rode.
Or it should just keep on one point, because when you have it on the actual top of the camera, it's just focused into a certain level. That's just whenever someone's talking, that's it. I mean, sure, if someone gets loud, they're gonna get loud, but with the mic, it's just like one side, one section. So it's like if I'm moving this way, it's probably gonna be picked up where it's like it sounds pretty off. But if I'm right in front of the mic, then you can hear, you can hear it clear.
It would be cool if you didn't edit that, so
No.
people can hear if you didn't edit that out. Okay, so anyways, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
This is really interesting because I haven't really heard of anybody interviewing their own back end or back of house
That's true.
podcasts.
Yeah.
So what Jose does is I'll give you an intro just like I give everybody else, but Jose does all of Jose is the person behind the scenes. He makes everything happen. He makes everything work. He does the editing, he does the music, he does the mixing, he does the everything. Jose, the videos and the audio. And so I really wanted to get into Jose's head because he is the one that's hit all of the bumps in the road in terms of trying to figure out how to get this podcast up and running, or how to get the YouTubes up and running. And while he's figuring that out, I'm figuring out how to be better for you guys to look at. But Jose is the one that's doing all the really, really, really hard work. And so I'm sure a lot of people want to start podcasts, want to start YouTubes, and it's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
When I gave you this project, was it intimidating?
It was, because, I mean, when you work on personal stuff, you already know what you personally want to do. But when you work on something like this, it's someone else's project. I mean, this is like, I mean, Tiffany's giving me like creative control on what to do with the videos and the podcast. So usually, like in previous work, they'll give you like a task sheet, and that task sheet would tell you, hey, this is what I want you to do. Exactly, like pinpoint, like from a certain time point where they want you to edit, where they want you to cut. So like this is always fun. Like when someone says, do whatever you want, cool, that's always great. But with this type of thing, it's like I only know you to a certain level. So you're telling me do what you want to do, like do what you can do with this. Like here's the work, like go for it, have fun. Then it's like, okay, what can I do that I know that she's gonna be happy with, that she can love? So this experience has been awesome because I've gotten to know you a lot more than I previously had. So, and it's kind of weird because Tiffany always does these, especially the videos, because the videos she always does these silly things just to warm up. So it kind of like makes you feel like better, like makes you feel like, all right, cool, like I know what I gotta do now, like I know what I can use, what I have to cut out, and like get me like pumped up. Like that gets me pumped up to know like, all right, I'm working right now. This is what I'm doing. Like we're good to go.
I literally, like, what runs through my head when I'm doing those is I'm paying Jose to watch me be a weirdo right now. But you have to. So
Yeah.
I guess one thing is like, I think I said this in the in the podcast with Oz. I have a hard time managing people. I want people to do what they do best, which is why I brought Jose in for this project. Jose used to work in our warehouse. He was like our warehouse manager. And he's like probably one of the best, easiest people that I've ever worked with. And I know that he loves video. I know that he loves audio stuff. Like he's the music guy. He was always like, like editing videos in his free time, like working on his projects. He went to school while he was working with us to like finish his degree in like, what is it, video editing?
Well, this time around was for audio engineering.
Audio engineering.
Yeah, I studied filmmaking before that, and I just love music so much that I thought like, well, I should really polish up my skills and just, do that as some. What else should I do? Like, just keep myself busy. So
this is what I love about Jose. He's always looking to improve. Like, so I knew that you did video stuff. I didn't know about the audio stuff, but obviously you're qualified to do this. And I know that's what you enjoy doing. So it's like, when I know that, I don't want to micromanage you. I don't want to tell you what to cut, like when to cut. And I do sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, we got to cut this out. Like,
yeah.
But for the most part, also, I wanted to see where you were starting, what your starting point was,
okay.
How much direction you actually needed. Because I don't want to I didn't want to like lay it all on you. Mostly because I know you. We've developed like a relationship in work over the past 3 years. No,
3
Outpost.
years?
You were working with us in Outpost.
I was. Yeah, that's how I started.
That was back in 2014.
Probably was 2014 then. Yeah, because that's how I came in because of Outpost. So
see, you've actually worked on 3 different things with us. So I know him work-wise. I know what he's capable of. I know how he works. So there's a development of trust there, and that's why I gave you so much and the way that I gave it to you.
Yeah.
But what difficulties did you come across? Like, let's go with the podcast first because that's where we started. I really put a lot on Jose.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, hey, we're gonna start a podcast. I asked you to register our business.
Yeah.
I gave you a bunch of content to edit. Mm-hmm. He had no idea what he was editing. Mm-hmm. He did the music and he put it all together, and he also does the posts.
Yes.
So that's a lot of work, and then I put the videos on him.
Yeah.
So once we got that rolling, the podcast rolling was after probably 4 or 5 episodes, right?
Correct.
Then
yeah.
I started,
yeah.
and then I was like, all right, here, let's do video now.
Yeah.
And then that was a whole nother thing that we had to get up and running. But let's talk about the podcast first, since it came first. What were your biggest hurdles? What were the things that you learned the most? That would make your life easier now if you had to do it again?
Well, I mean, I think you've asked me a couple of times too, directions on my end to say what do you need to do better? How should you use the mic better? How should you fix certain parts of the recording device itself? So one of the biggest things that I never really thought about that I really had to go in depth was when it comes to editing the podcast, there's a lot of parts. I guess it's normal for everyone to be like, okay, when you're doing an interview, you're always gonna have these words that you say. So you always say or the is a big thing that you're going to say. So there were, at the very beginning of those episodes, there was a lot of quiet moments, but a lot of and so it's like, but then you'll dive right into like the conversation that we were just having, like, because it sounded like you're thinking of that question, trying to go back into your head and think like, what was about to ask right now. So that was always difficult at the beginning, because I had to learn that I had to cut so much. So a lot of time was spent on like, okay, I gotta take out these especially because, if they sound natural, sure, I'll leave a couple of them, but otherwise that episode would just be like left and right for like every other minute. So that was always like a difficult part, because I'd have to like really go in there, and especially when the would probably be so long that it comes into the question, I'd have to like really get in depth with like a magnifying glass and just like split it where it sounds like that never happened. So.
Okay. So if you're looking to do audio and podcasting, then pay attention to your own, I guess, transition words and how you use them. And a pause would be better, because it would make it easier for your editor to do that. If you're doing your own editing, it would make it easier for you too.
And I think the other part was because we were working. It's not like we were working in the same room; like we were working remotely. So that's.
I was in a different country.
Yeah. So it'd be difficult to just be like, hey, Tiffany, like, you messed up right here. Can we like do this all over again? Like at this moment, like that's the difference. Like right now, what we're doing here, it's like, okay, sure, we can be like, all right, let's do another take. Like, cause I already know it might not come out right in the episode, but at that moment, at the beginning, that's what was the difficult part. Cause it's like, all right, I gotta work into this because it is what I got. There's no like redos right here. So I gotta work the best that I can to make this sound good.
Yeah. You're also very meticulous about things, though. Like, I would probably like not spend the time.
Yeah.
And you like really get in there. You're like, no, I have to make this like the best that it can be.
I am definitely like that. I'm very, very meticulous. Like, I want to make sure everything is perfect. And I know things can't always be perfect, but I try to do my best to what it seems to be at least decent.
But that's also in Oz's episode. That's why one of the things that I realized before I started making content that you didn't realize was that nobody's going to listen to the first episodes.
Yeah.
You just have to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And I think Jose spent like, really long time editing the episodes that, they're just like, let's call those warm-up episodes. Even though there's like great content, I may end up redoing that content again, just because, we had to start somewhere.
Like you said, it's a learning step through everything, through this whole process of what we've been working on together, because it's true, like now we come to a realization where it's like, oh, well, yeah, who really might be watching or listening to this stuff? So it doesn't have to be completely perfect or like great. So
what other things have you learned along the way that would have helped you, like either do it faster, do it better, or like what other sticking points were there that like major learning opportunities or learning hurdles that you had to go through? What about with like the applications?
Okay, the applications. I mean, the applications are something I already do know how to work on. So it had been a while though. So I felt like at the beginning, I was warming up into the application that I was using to edit the podcasts, but I feel like it's been something interesting too, because I've never have had to apply for our podcast to be set up. So that was new. Like I've always had that interest for my own personal work, but I've never done it. So this was great to actually do all this, because I was able to learn a lot to it. So as much as it took me some time, it's like now I know how to do all that stuff to just easily come about for whatever reason. I also need to set up some other show or something. Or
what was the most difficult part about the applications? Was it just having all of the information?
Yeah, it's because a lot of applications, they want you to be very particular. Like you need to have everything set up like all ready to go. Like you need to have your artwork, and it needs to be to a specific type of size for the artwork. Obviously, have the name of your show. You need to have have to have a lot of metadata. So you have to have also a description of your show, and you have to have you already had to have a certain amount of episodes. So even though it took us time for those first couple of episodes, like I had to dump all that all at once. It couldn't just be like one episode. You could, but then it's like they'll listen. I'm assuming from what I read, it's like they'll listen to it and see like, all right, you know, you qualified. But if you had so many episodes just to dump on there, it's like, okay, cool. They legit want to have a podcast show, so they're going to be consistent.
So the major thing is just to make content.
Make content. That's pretty much it. And I think because we're still trying to set up for Spotify, and like I mentioned before, it's like Spotify, they're very particular because they have like a large base of people who just want to start a show, and so everyone wants to go on Spotify because everyone uses Spotify, everyone listens to Spotify. So it's just much more difficult for you to get into it. It actually, from what I read, it's supposed to take about 3 months just to hopefully get approved. And it's not like they're gonna email you saying, hey, you're in the on Spotify now. You'll just show up, like I'll just pop up on their Spotify servers, and then like that's it. But for them, it seems like you actually need to have like a following base. Like you need to actually have a certain amount of like a bunch of episodes. And unless again, like, you know, somebody that can get you in, then I guess they make it easy on you. But
so if you're thinking about starting a podcast, just start.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't worry about the application. Like, make a few episodes, and then from there, like, the application sounds pretty easy.
Yeah, and then another thing is too that a lot of like I know with Apple Podcast and like Google Play, they'll take you in. And they say that you need to be active, like you need to consistently be like dropping episodes. They're not specific whether it's like every week, every day, every month. They're just saying you should just be active. And that's the other bad part about Spotify too. It's like you really have to be active. If you're not active, it's possible they can just like bump you out.
Okay, so just because you get on Spotify doesn't mean you'll stay there?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that
but then
makes
again,
sense.
we're still waiting on that. So it's like once we get on that, I guess we'll see how that really works. But at least from what I read on their own, like on their back end, that's how it is. So.
And then what other platforms are we on?
Stitcher.
Okay.
Stitcher, yeah.
And how was that similar to like iTunes?
That one was actually a little bit more, I guess, in a professional sense, like more clean, in that you actually had to submit an application, like a legit application saying we have to have a website already, you have to have a certain amount of episodes. Then you did have to wait for an email to actually get approved.
Okay.
So yeah, that actually took a little bit more time, but still, I mean, we got in, but yeah, it took time.
Yeah.
Versus Apple was all inclusive, like you just drop everything in there, and that's pretty much it. They have like a little status bar too, to show you like, oh hey, you're approved or not, or like when your application is rolling. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then there's also some Zoom settings, right?
Yeah.
Do we go over that in a video or
No, we never have actually.
So Jose will walk you through how to set up your Zoom. So like, it's for what program? Like, what are your tools?
Well, okay, for me, the way how this works, you choose the audio file that you want. So majority of the time, we always try to save it as like a WAV file, a WAV file, because it's pretty universal. Like any application you use, it'll take it. And a lot of times, it just depends on like what your what ecosystem you have. Is it Apple or is it Microsoft? Because there's always another file format that you can save. It's called AIFF. That one always saves a lot of like metadata information. It makes it a lot more easier on you too. Like if you save everything correctly, like when you dump it into like the computer, it's pretty much like all there. But we usually use WAV just because it's more universal.
It's universal.
Yeah.
So tell us what your setup is. Like what do you use for editing and all of that stuff? Like music, audio, video, editing, and then we'll go through like Zoom settings, and then we'll go through camera settings.
Okay.
No, well, we won't go through camera settings because we already did a video on that.
Yeah.
So we'll go through Zoom settings.
Okay, Zoom settings.
No, like what do you use?
What do I use?
Tell us all your tools.
All my tools.
Yeah. What do you use for editing?
Oh, like the
programs. Like for creating, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I usually use Final Cut Pro.
How would you say? What would you call these tools that you use? Programs?
Yeah, programs. Yeah. So
when you're talking to your editor, when you're talking to your, what did Oz call you?
What do you call me?
Producer.
Producer.
When you're
yeah.
talking to your producer, don't call things tools. Call them programs. What programs do you use?
I usually
Producer?
just use a Final Cut Pro 10 for video editing. And I usually do also use
What about for audio?
for audio, I use Logic Pro.
Okay.
Logic Pro 10 also, so.
And then on a daily basis when you're doing work, like for us, what are you using?
Well, those.
What tools do you use?
Well, actually, those are the programs I use with our project right now. Like, normally I would use Pro Tools for audio stuff. But since like I've been making music also for the show, it just makes it a lot more easier to use like Logic Pro, just because. I mean, when I was in New York and I was making all this stuff at first, I didn't have like my guitar or like my bass. Like I had a keyboard. That's it. So it's just everything's more inclusive with like Logic with what I had there. Like it already has like its own little sound programs in there. They're instrumental programs. So it was easy for me to just like click, use whatever, and then apply it to whatever episode I'm currently working on.
Okay. Also, Jose, no, I'm self-conscious of all of my ums. Jose, so when you do a podcast, you're going to need an intro. So either that's an intro to the podcast, a description, and you're going to need, like if you're interviewing, you'll need like an intro for the interview, either the person that you're interviewing. And then I started off with a list of questions, but I've kind of gone to having an intention of who I want to interview, and then what I want to get out of it, or what I want, not me personally, but like what I want to bring out of it. And then I kind of go with the flow through the interview and questions. And then an outro that could be like a sign off or something, and then a description in the show notes. So what Jose does is he'll like go, when he's editing, he'll make a list of all of the things that we talk about over the interview, and then he'll time stamp them.
Yeah.
And then put links to anything below. So he does all the posting and descriptions and stuff.
Yeah.
And what else did we have to figure out together? There were a lot of things that we've like gone back and forth about.
Yeah.
Like there was the camera stuff, there's the Zoom settings. Do you want to go over the Zoom settings now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it depends on what you work on, but if you're trying to start the podcast recordings, it usually is best to set it at a 44.1 kHz. That's like the recording format that you're gonna want to have it on for versus the file formatting, which is WAV, because it's just the standard way to go when you're gonna like stream audio anywhere. But when it comes to video though, it works a little bit more differently. You usually end up going towards a 48. I think I told you what it was. 48 kHz. It's just the way we were taught.
So that's funny. Okay, so before I got the Rode mic, I was using the Zoom to record audio while I was using the camera to record video. And if you're going to match the audio and the video that way, then you need to change the settings on the Zoom to 48.
Yeah.
What's the difference in the sound?
Okay, well, the higher you actually go, the more information you actually are recording. Like it's.
So
how you can explain it? For example, okay, a picture. If you take a standard definition picture versus a high definition picture, which is gonna look better?
High def.
Exactly, the high definition picture. So the higher you actually go with the actual recording format, the more information you get out of the recording. It's how can I explain that more? There's just more detailed information on the sound waves that you get. So
how does that interpret audio?
Okay, so when we actually, once we're done with like the audio project, whatever podcast episode that we worked on, usually you have to save that. So what I usually have to do is I still save it as a WAV file, and it's still at that high resolution format, but it has to downsize to an MP3 format. So then when it downsizes into an MP3 format, it starts to lose all this information. So if a symbol is like a certain way how it sounds much more cleaner, when it starts to downsize, that symbol doesn't sound...
It's distorted.
It's distorted.
So if this is a really good thing to know.
Yeah.
So 44 is safe.
Yeah, I mean, you can honestly go higher if you want to. The only reason why we will try to keep it that way is because, well, how long do you think we're gonna be working on this like episode? Like, it just depends on your memory settings. Like, if your memory card only has a certain amount of like space in it, then that's the reason why we'll keep it. Like, that's the standard for you to keep it at, for you to record it. But you can go a lot more higher if you want. So it's like when I do my work from home, like when I actually work on my own music, if I have to record stuff, I actually go at 96. That's like 2 times. Yeah, 2 times.
2, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Just because you really are going to record the best that you can from that audio format. So then when you keep going down, again, once you go down, like when you do it to an MP3 format, it'll probably sound just really clean. And it's a very interesting thing that a lot of people sometimes, obviously if you didn't really study it or you're not into like the whole like recording aspects of like making music and stuff, like you start to learn. That's why there's a whole debate on like Apple Music, because like Apple has this thing of like, oh, you can download their stuff on like iTunes Plus because it's like a higher quality standard where it's like it'll sound like if it's coming out like a CD, but yet it's in an MP3 file format.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people always say this all the time. That's why some if you talk to like old school people who are like into like CD collecting and all that stuff, that's why a lot of them stick to their CDs too, because you get like the best audio quality out of a CD. You still can now that you can. Like, you can totally get like the best audio quality like from like digitally. It's just you have to obviously download it to that file size. And usually like a full file size for like a 3-minute song for something like that could be maybe about over a gigabyte versus like 30 megabytes or something.
Yeah. Is that what... Does Tidal do that too?
Yeah, actually that's what Tidal was like trying to focus on. They were trying to make it seem hi-fi is what they will call it, for like the hi-fi people who want high fidelity in their audio. So that's what their whole spiel was, is that like, hey, we're not sure, we're like another streaming service company, but we have the hi-fi where it's like at the high def.
Yeah.
So that's what they usually do.
I mean, I don't know if I can tell the difference, but I can definitely get my dose of Jay-Z on Tidal, and I can't do that anywhere else. So. Yeah,
I mean, sure. I mean, dude, like, there's a lot of people who go like really in depth with all that kind of stuff. Like, sure, we can just have a simple set of like Apple headphones or just some beats, and we can probably if you listen to that kind of stuff a lot, you'll be able to tell. But if you're just like, I don't care, like I just want to listen to music, like it's not gonna come. Like, you can't tell so much of a difference unless someone tells you like, hey, listen to this one and then listen to this one and tell me like which one sounds better. But again, people sometimes even spend like a crap load of money just to have better headphones that are gonna give you that experience that you want, amplifiers, speakers, like different things. So
yeah.
I
actually I can tell the difference in headphones.
Okay.
I just can't tell the difference in apps.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, that's the other thing too. Here's another thing that you probably should know, because sometimes a lot of these apps, you need to switch your settings too. Still, yeah, sometimes you do. Like Spotify for a while.
Okay, so like what would the settings be?
Like for Spotify before, like you actually had to go into your audio playback settings, and I'll tell you the different types of MP3 formats you can listen to. So it'll be like 128.
In your computer or in your phone?
In your phone.
There are audio playback settings in the phone?
Yeah, every app that you use will have its own little settings, so you have to actually go into it and tweak them. So it's like Tidal, like from what I remember, you do have to switch those settings too. Like if you pay for that hi-fi subscription, then you have to turn it on and be like, this is the format I want to listen to it in.
All right, after we're done with this, I'll drive me home while you change my settings. Because I had no idea you could even change your audio settings in your phone.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, let's go over just a couple things. So if you're going to hire someone, be very specific about how you want your editing done. I didn't do that with Jose because I've worked with Jose before, and I know he's like sort of on the same wavelength. Not real, like we're not on the same wavelength, but you're on, like, you know what you're doing because you've done this for so long, and it's because like your heart's there. Yeah. And so like that's why I trust you. But if you're gonna hire somebody to do your work and it's not Jose, then you have to be. I'm hiring people to do like, you know, the SEO stuff and the optimization, like for YouTube's and like descriptions. And as I'm talking to people, not really, like not everyone is like ready to be there and understand exactly what you want and need. They need to be told what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this stuff right now too, with the whole optimization thing. Like, it's all new to me. I mean, I'm learning from you. Like, you're giving me the definition of like, hey, this is how you do it. This is how it's done. So I mean, it's always been interesting too. It's just the fact like that it's this whole project has been like a learning step too, as much as the stuff that I know, but the other things that I don't know, like I'm learning. So it's like, hey, I can't say like I'm like the best to do that specifically, but hey, I'm learning something new, and it's just like a new skill.
Yeah.
You know?
I think in terms of optimization, I think it's more of like the way that I look at it is it's a way of thinking. Because you have to think about what other people are searching for, so you could be there to capture them, or you could be there when they search, when the search engine comes up, you know. That's how I think about optimization. I wouldn't say, I guess it's just trying to figure out what other people are looking for,
which is really, really interesting to know, because it's like you think like, oh yeah, just search something online and it pops out. It's like, oh cool, like it's just there, but you don't really think and realize, oh well, there's steps taken from these websites or these people who are doing that for them to be like at the top of the list. So it's another
you're seeing it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I'm just seeing it from a different perspective.
Not only from like a searcher's perspective, but you're seeing it from like the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I actually think that's valuable information to be able to have in general. Yeah. To see things from a new perspective.
It does, because now once you learn that's it. It's like every day you do something like that. Whenever you go back to doing that, it's like that's the way you see it. So it's like, yeah, if I search for something, it's like, okay, let me look into more details about that. So it's like there's a lot of things that I feel like for me personally, it conflicts with my daily life, not in a bad way, but it's like, for example, like when I finished off like the whole like audio engineering program, it's like that came more into a thing where it's like, okay, I pay attention a lot more at movies. Like if I'm watching a movie, it's like, oh, they made a mistake right there, or that sound doesn't sound right. I know that's probably how they did it. Like sometimes you ruin things for other people, especially if you're talking out loud, you know?
I know exactly what you mean. Knowing things makes you appreciate really good quality, thoughtful things, right? Yeah. Because when you see something and you can also see the underside of it, like the work that went into it and the thought that went into it, you really appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
You're automatically just like pulled to it. You're like, that's good stuff. And there's not a whole lot of good like things out there.
No, you know? I mean, for example, for me, since like I'm a whole like movie guy, that's why when a lot of people always say like, oh, this movie was terrible, it was bad, it's like, I don't know, I read a lot of reviews, critic reviews, especially also like on Rotten Tomatoes, but just because something is fresh stamped doesn't mean I'm probably going to love it, or I'm going to be like, okay, cool, like this is the best movie ever. Like even if something is like that terribly bad, I'll watch it because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, because they put work into it, and might not know what their whole point of what they were working on was supposed to be. So
yeah. Another reason why I'm also like so hard on myself, and it's hard to put out content that I also sometimes know isn't that full like range of quality that I appreciate, but at the same time it's like it takes a lot to get to that point. And if I'm you and I both appreciate like good quality stuff, and it's like we're just aiming to be that every single time, or aiming to be a little closer to it every single time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's tough for people like us because it's tough to start something knowing that it won't be there when we start, right?
Yes, and that's a good way to put things. That sometimes, like for me being like, again, meticulous, like I for years would always feel like, oh, I need to have like this equipment, this is exact like item, I need to have this exact program, like I need to be in this mindset. Sometimes you just have to tell yourself like, no, just do it, just go for it, work with what you have.
Yeah, I love that.
So
work with what you have, and if you really need something more later down the road, like get it. Yeah,
exactly. And then again, you don't know who's gonna listen or watch your content, but either way, it's a practice. It's a practice for you to improve on your own self. So if you just want to do something, you just have to go for it. I mean, sometimes I feel like you have to be in the right mindset just to do it, because that's the only way how you can feel you can do it. But you just need that extra push from someone to just be like, no, go for it and do it. Because once you do it, you're in there, you're good. Like, you can go from there.
Yeah, I think it along the same lines. I think it's good to commit to doing it more than once too.
True. Yeah.
Because you could go do it and then fail miserably and then talk yourself out of doing it again.
Yeah.
So if you commit to doing more than one at a time, like commit to doing like 12.
Yeah.
Or like whatever your number is that you have to get comfortable with that routine and that habit, then do that commitment.
Like me, I'd probably feel like, all right, maybe a couple more times of this and I can start up my own channel too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you just have to do. Like sometimes, I don't, like for me personally, like I actually I've always been like a very shy person. I've always been like very to myself. Like sure, I'd have friends, like I'm the way I am personally, like still being like cool and just, friendly with anyone. But I was always very shy, so I was never out to just be like I can just do whatever I want, like without caring. But I ended up joining like a theater production in high school. So that really like brought out a lot of like my personality out there. I was able to do so much. Like I felt like I was so the real me. But after that time, like I don't know, like I think I slowed down. I think I got so serious with my work. Like I took a different path, because before I wanted to actually get into like acting for some time because of everything that I was doing. But then like I took a certain point of like that program I took into like writing and directing. So I was like, no, this is what I want to do. So when I started going through that path, like I took myself too seriously with like my work and just keeping to myself and quiet. And then I felt like I'm starting to be like that shy person again.
Oh yeah.
So then I was like, I know I can work on my own stuff if I could, but then when you're like, you get in front of the camera or you try to work on your own stuff, you're just like, that was terrible. Like I don't want no one to watch me like the way I'm being myself like that. Like you just need to sometimes just go over it, take a couple tries, and once you get comfortable, you're just like, you'll know what to do.
Yeah. Or what's helped me a lot is going into things with that foresight already, that insight, already knowing that I'm going to judge myself. And so putting that voice to rest by already acknowledging it before I start.
Makes sense, yeah.
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 Because it was tough. It's tough for me too.
Yeah.
We're similar in that sense too. Like I keep to myself a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes keeping to yourself a lot obviously isn't good, because at one point you're just like, and I don't know, depending on who's around. Because I mean, I was just telling you about the whole experience that I had in New York. Like once I got like really mad, it's like I was bawling so many feelings inside that out of nowhere it's just like pop, and then I'm just like, I don't like any of you guys. I'm leaving out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. Anything else you want to share that you've learned along the way, or that would help anybody who's listening who wants to start either a podcast or a YouTube channel and like is having trouble navigating the back end?
This isn't obvious, but a lot of us don't always take this into consideration into like our actual daily work. Take notes, because sometimes you need to go back into those notes to see like what you did wrong or what you can improve on. And
how do you use your notes?
Well, again, for like a lot of the mistakes that maybe you might have made, or I'll try to go back and see like how I can do a workaround for that.
Okay. So how, like, walk us through how, like, a type of note that you would take. Let's say I do an
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like
all
that,
right, here we go here.
Like that.
What
like,
would you write down?
So before I would every episode I was trying to start writing a certain amount of notes, just saying like, okay, well, how can I work around these like like, because I know I can't just like I feel like I'm wasting too much time. Like I can't just keep editing out like every part that she's saying like so going back to certain episodes, I'd figure like, yeah, what she's saying one in every single episode, just cut it down where it's like take a certain amount of them out, but when you do that whole like okay, like it comes into a natural feeling, like it sounds good. Like if you're just saying because well you're trying, I don't know, either you're shy or you might be embarrassed, not embarrassed, sorry, you might not be like there fully in your head thinking that this is the question I need to ask. Some moments you would say like those times I know it's like, okay, well I can cut out so much, but if it just sounds so natural or it just comes through the good conversation, then it's just like, all right, those are the things that I need to leave so I don't waste time. So I mean those are like the typical notes that I would just write down for that at least on that end. And then again, because you did ask me for certain notes, because on your end you wanted to make sure that you can improve on certain parts.
Yeah, I'm always asking Jose, like, so I give Jose chunks of work at a time, and he like works through them and then he posts them, and when he works through like a certain amount and he sends me updates on a weekly basis on things that he worked on, and then I'll text him and say, hey, with those videos, what needs to be improved so you can spend less time editing, or so that your job is easier to edit? Because like I'm really throwing a lot of work at him, and two, because I don't want him to be spending like 10 hours ripping his hair out editing out, you know? Like that's not fun for you. I want you to have fun while you're doing this.
Seeing on that part too, it's like, I mean, I'm learning certain things. Like you can easily just put like a title onto like our videos. Like it's like, you know, slap on Tit TV. Like this is the episode. It can be so easy, but it seemed like, well, eventually we have to evolve. So it's like I started to learn more on how to do these like animated titles where it's like, you know, like appear and bounce off or like things like that. So those are other note takings that I started to take, because
cool.
Trust me, like there's been on some videos where I like, okay, I remember how to do it, but then it's like I come around next week to working on the next one to actually doing those parts, and I'm like, I've forgotten how to do it, because there's specific ways you have to do with like the programs in order to do it. So it's like I'll forget. Like sometimes I'll work on something, and then while I'm halfway done, I try to test it out to see how it looks and realize I forgot to like press that button for it to like activate. So now I have to start all over again. But again, it's note taking to go back in your notes that you can just like practice still. Again, after a few times you'll just.
Cool. Well, is there anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to add? I actually think this is a really cool episode because, like I said at the beginning, like nobody really gets this behind the scenes info usually.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I've never seen that before either, so this is cool.
Yeah, fist bump.
No, I mean, I don't think there's anything else I can really add. I mean, like I said, note taking. I feel like that's like one of the things, practice. I mean, make sure you just have everything ready to go. Like, I feel like if you're organized, have everything all in place like before you start, then everything falls smoothly. Because if not, if you're like, oh damn, like I missed out on something, I'm missing something else, then you got to go back and you got to backtrack yourself, and it's like, yeah, you're just wasting time.
So stay organized.
Yeah, because I mean, personally for me, it's like, I don't know if anyone else can feel the same way. You got to put yourself in that mindset once you start working. So it's like once you're there, you're like on a go, and if something like just distracts you or just it stops you for that moment, then it's like, you know, you lose that focus and you feel like...
you lose your train of thought. You lose where you are and what you were doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do? Do you like board yourself up while you're doing editing work? Do you work at night? How do you do it? What's your favorite time to... What's like your favorite thing to do for work on this type of stuff?
Well... Yeah, nighttime, you know, it really depends on my day, to be honest. I usually do try to work more at nighttime, but recently since I got back to LA, I've been working more in the mornings, which is nice, because I never really thought that like just waking up, having like a good breakfast or something that you can just work easily right after that. I don't know. I feel like creatively, like for me, I've always worked at nighttime, 'cause especially like when I would work on music, like I'd feel like it's the end of your day. You want to just do something that you love, something you're just like, all right, like I know what I'm in that creative mindset now that I can just like go in. But again, since I guess now it's like this is kind of like something I've just been focusing on solely, so it feels more like, oh well, I'm not working on anything else except this kind of work. So it just seems still surprising for me to feel like, oh, this is my work, like this is my life work right now, that I can just like wake up and do this. So even then I'm just like, cool, ready to go.
Cool. All right, well, we can always do an episode 2, episode
Yeah.
3. We're going to keep adding to the content and the platforms. And Jose, like, this is his baby, basically.
Yeah.
And, like, we're going to have more episodes like this. The more we learn, and we're babies, too. Like, the more we learn and the more we find little tips and tricks that will help other people, will continue to help out.
Yeah.
It's been fun having you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
I know
for
you're
sure.
not like in front of, like, I don't know. He's like, I'm kind of nervous.
I am.
Don't be nervous.
Yeah, you know it's so weird
You know
too.
your stuff.
It's so weird because like I keep telling you, like I've been trying to work on my own stuff. I actually do have my own website, like my own blog site, and like I post every so often, and I've done like one YouTube video that was just like an unboxing, and I was like, this was fun, but I feel weird like doing this because I'm not used to it. Like again, like you say, it's like you gotta do it a couple times. Once you do it a couple times, then you just kind of go for it. But sometimes you just gotta tie yourself and just be like, who cares what everyone thinks? Just do it.
We can put this on your website.
That's true. Yeah.
So now you have 2.
Yeah. That's true.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you do. Like, I know that I just throw a lot of stuff at you, and you've been handling it like a boss. So I really appreciate it. And if anybody needs help, Jose actually is taking clients, and we'll put his show notes along with his links and to his website and contact info. And he's a total boss on all this editing and mixing stuff. So thank you so much, Jose, and we'll have you back again for round 2.
For sure.
Sometime.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.